especially with a lot of our fans. Let's get them on our side a little bit here. Let's start with the College Football Committee. I know there's a lot of stuff going on right now. And once again, shockingly, the NCAA football has found themselves in the middle of controversy. This just seems like a repeat story for a good couple decades now, that part of me is starting to wonder maybe we're the fools in the situation, as we realize we keep talking about them year in and year out. But I'm not going to dive into that controversy just yet. We're going to just talk about their latest rankings that came out and how that upset so many fans and what they're doing to allow that sense of anger and frustration to come out. And I'm sure, Buck, you saw some of the rankings that came out and people that were frustrated. You had people mad because Oklahoma wasn't in the top 4, even though they're undefeated. You had people that were ticked off that Cincinnati was so much lower than their other ranking. And just a lot of frustration top to bottom on that. And the reason there's a lot of frustration outside the elements of like OU and Cincinnati being undefeated is that they're the playoff rankings by the NCAA football that now are different than the rankings by the NCAA football. How do you allow your playoff ranking to suddenly supersede and become something that's more important than your constant seeding of the teams? If you have Cincinnati number 2 in your league rankings that you plaster on the scoreboard when Cincinnati plays someone and they're ranked number 2 on their little thing, and if they get beat, let's say on an away turf, what happens? The fans rush the crowd. They don't care if they're going to get fined right now with COVID and everything like that and all the protocols, and they're going to rush the field. And what will those fans say? We beat the number 2 out of that team. I mean, heck, we saw that with Purdue saying it about Penn State. We beat the number 2 out of that team. That's what's so important. And then they get to these college playoff rankings and they're like, hey guys, you know that number 2? Yeah, no, that's really just a 5. Don't worry about it. It's really not that important. And it makes absolutely no sense. So people are sitting here going, what's more important? Are the rankings important? Are the playoff elements important? Why are they different? And it all comes down to this. They start the season with standards of rankings when the teams haven't even played. And one of the biggest factors in this frustration is how a team like Alabama, who, yes, is an extremely successful team, has a ton of success, one of the greatest, if not the greatest college football coach of all time, and yet they're not on par per se with a normal season for them. Still a team in a success rate this season that most fans would love to have out of their own college football team. I'm a Longhorns fan. Just ask me how I'm feeling about this season. But with that said, you're going to sit here and have this team come in ranked super high, lose a game against an unranked team, which is now ranked because they beat a high-ranked Alabama team, and have no real challenge on their schedule, and yet they're inside the playoff rankings, whereas other teams are not, that are, undefeated in every way, shape, or form. And what it comes down to is this. When you start the season with your teams ranked, when they haven't even played a game, when they haven't played serious competition, and you try to tell the world this is how good these teams are, but you yourself have never even seen them, and then you shift how you're grading them now for a playoff situation and negate all the rankings, you're not only a hypocritical system or group or whatever the heck you want to call the NCAA, but you just are flat out idiotic. And I swear you're doing this on purpose in order just to get people like me to get on shows and just to give you crap. So here's my solution. It's this simple. Stop ranking the teams before the season starts. In fact, stop ranking the teams after week 1. Stop ranking the teams after week 2. Hell, why don't we go to about week 5, 6, 7, and I don't know, rank the teams for the first time when you bring out your playoff rankings and let that be the definitive measure. Nonetheless, there will still be people that are ticked off. But why the heck do you run a system in which you allow one ranking to be over here, but it makes no sense in terms of your ranking over here, which this ranking determines who gets a chance to go for the championship? So you're sitting here telling me Cincinnati, you're number 2, but you're not going to have a chance to be able to go win the championship if the season ended right now, man, that really just sounds like a system that Combs would pretty much put together, and it just makes no sense. So shame on you, NCAA, for having this system. Just get to the quick fix. It's so simple. Stop the preseason rankings, stop the early season rankings. Let this week be the first time you come out in rankings, and let the field of work be the judge in terms to how good these teams actually are or are not.